All right, so to everybody who is here and to everybody who is watching later, welcome, welcome. This is Last Friday Job Party. We are presented by the 4 IT brands of GEE Group. I am your host, Ciara, along with my co-host, Ben, and we have our special guest, Clint Hawkins, today. Let's go that way. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself? Then we'll circle back to Clint.
Sure. Benjamin Sheffield. I work with SNI Technology, which is a division of the G Group. I've been a recruiter now for a little over 10 years. I mainly work in the IT space, but I've honestly put people to work coast to coast in a variety of industries over the course of my career. This is a topic that's going to be very special to me. I think Clint would say the same on this end. We're both very passionate about this field, and I just look forward to seeing what we can come up with today. So.
Yeah, and I'm Clint Hawkins. I'm with GEE Group. I work with all the different brands that we have. We decided to do this a while back, and just want to give the caveat: none of us are licensed therapists that are talking right now, but there's just been so many different things that we've kind of gleaned from conversations we've had. I've been recruiting for 20-something years, talked to thousands of people that have gone through hard times and job loss, and I've been there myself. In the past 8 years, I've had 3 different job transitions where that were really tough, and have those moments like, I don't know what I'm going to do next, and I don't know how to ask for the right help. So definitely want to dive into some of those things today, and we're not, none of us are a stranger to that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. And to back up just a second, so Last Friday Job Party, we meet the last Friday of every month and we talk hiring, job market, recruiting, resume, LinkedIn, all of the buzzwords. But in our conversations with candidates and job seekers, we felt that we would be doing a real disservice to ourselves as well as you guys if we didn't hold a space to talk about mental health, because the job market has been really rough the past couple years, and we're not here to sugarcoat it. And we're not your therapist and here to tell you exactly what to do, but we want to create a safe space to open the conversation. So with this, the first thing that we wanted to talk about was kind of naming the mental load. And I know, Ben, this is something that you really want to talk about, these invisible stressors. Why don't you start us off there and kind of open us?
Sure. I'll speak. I want to back up just for a moment too, and let you all know that Clint's not the only one on this call that's been impacted by a job loss. So a lot of the things I'm going to be talking about today are not just theory. They've been put into practice, honestly, by me and again by millions of people around the country. And there's a lot of things out there when it comes to how to deal with the impact of losing the job. And I just want everyone to know that hopefully the advice and the things that we bring you today are going to be actionable and practical portions of advice for you. As far as this part of the topic, the main thing that I always want to tell people at the very top of the conversation here is really kind of framing what a job is, right? I think so many times in our society, we give ourselves value by what we do for work. And that's an important part of who you are and all that entails you, so to speak, but it does not totally define you, right? I think a lot of times I've put this through fact, that's not through just me talking. When I've lost jobs in the past, the biggest thing that I felt was a loss of identity. I've been caught in a couple of global layoffs, neither of which were my fault. It just happened as the economy was downturning. And I just want to really stress that your value does not sit on a business card. It's not wrapped in a work. You are so much more than what you do for a living. And I experienced that most recently prior to coming back to SNI. This is actually my second trip around the sun at SNI. I've been back now for a couple of years, but I'd always wanted to be a director of talent acquisition. I always wanted to be a director in my space. And a global management consulting firm recruited me out of my previous organization where I'd been for 7 years back in 2022. And the downturn got us, 2022. The downturn got us in 2023. And I remember just feeling that massive loss of self. In those spaces, I had to kind of step back and deal with the blow, understand, what had happened and make sure all my ducks were in a row proverbially. But I also had to learn how to be the kindest person in the room to myself, right? Being able to understand that the most important voice that you can have in these moments is what you're telling yourself. Burnout can become very real in the job search. And if you're in a spot right now where you're looking to either get out of a role that you're miserable in, or if you're burned out because you've been unemployed for 6 months, or something massive happened to you yesterday, go into understanding that, with that pressure through being able to provide financially for others, for family members, for yourself, et cetera, you have to kind of acknowledge and be prepared to manage the stress around it. I know Clint's going to talk a little bit further about some ideas on that particular topic as far as things that he would recommend doing. But the general gist is, the best way to counter is to be intentional in confronting it and understanding what it is. Make sure you're setting aside time for, important people, things that you enjoy, and things that you can learn, and really just focusing on self-care, if you will. Any thoughts that you all want to add on that? Because I don't want to just keep rambling on my side. I want to give it back to Clint and Ciara just for a moment to see if there's anything that they would want to throw at it.
Go for it, Ciara.
I was gonna say, Clint, why don't you go and I'll circle up.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Ben, for laying all that out. I think for me, going through job loss, there was a time probably about 8 years ago where I got fired for the first time in my life, and it was definitely my fault. Like, this is my performance, my things, and it was on me. And I spent majority of my life focused on my self-worth being on my career, my title, how much money I was making, how did I look to my neighbors, like all these things where all the self-worth was really focused on career and identity in my career. And I came to wrecking halt one afternoon and changed a lot. And I think a couple things that hit me, and I don't know if this resonates for the folks that are here, is I had a tremendous feeling of shame, but that, because this is like, it was tagged to me, like, this was your fault why you were getting let go. So I've gone through that and struggling with, like, how do you kind of like grieve what's happening and also deal with, like, shame of job loss. And I realized too, as I've worked with like hundreds of people, through doing what we do, that the same type of feeling shows up even if it's like a riff or like a layoff or whatever it is, where there's like a sense of like shame that gets thrown on you for, you didn't do anything wrong, and you feel like you're like, that you're a good person, and like you knew you were doing a good job. Yet some decision by someone that does not know you has now wrecked your world. And it's always like, what the hey? Like, and I'm based here in Austin, Texas. And so I see this firsthand, like in my neighborhood, within the people from my church. Like, I'm not going to name companies, but Austin's gone through a lot of big tech layoffs in the past 2 years. And folks have been with the same company 20 something years, 25 years, all of a sudden the rug's yanked out from underneath them, and it has nothing to do with them. It's, it's decisions made in different stratospheres of leadership that makes it happen. I feel like some of the things that helped me, and I know it's been helping folks, that is like, don't get stuck in isolation. So I feel like this is one of these, a lot of folks and myself even would go hide after this happens. It's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to, I'm embarrassed to tell people I don't have a job. I'm embarrassed to ask for help. And that is one of the first hurdles. I'd say, if you're stuck in this like shame zone because of job loss, and whether it was a riff, a layoff, you got fired, wherever you want to call it, push through that one as fast as you can. And start getting advocates, talking to advocates in your life about what's going on. And that means like getting, not being isolated, because one of the things when you get really isolated, you're talking about kind of inner thoughts, you need to be the kindest person in the room to yourself. That internal rhetoric starts going. If you don't start talking out loud to others and you get really isolated, we get addicted to our own thoughts, and we start telling ourselves, you start telling yourself these stories and plot lines that really never happened, and really are like unwarranted things that you keep piling on yourself. The best way I feel like it's worked for me and seeing it work is like, don't get isolated. Start talking to others. Make it a point to be engaged with other people. Even it's not like job hunting, but just getting out and talking, and don't have any shame about that spot you're in. Because if you don't let other people know, people want to help. There's moments in your life where you're helping others, and there's moments where the helper needs help, right? So don't feel like this is a burden for you to go out and tell somebody, hey, I need some help here. I need some advice.
Even before going that far, just getting out and speaking with others. There is a study published back in 2019 by the American Psychological Association that I can link in the chat after. And it talked about one of the main co-issues that we see with job loss is the loss of collective purpose. And that's what really screws people up. It's not just the primary losses. So you're not getting up at 8 a.m. every day. You're not in a routine. You're not following a schedule and having a steady form of pay and healthcare and all of these things. But what mentally really gets us is the loss of collective purpose. And I know it's going to sound the way it's going to sound coming from me, because everybody knows I'm going to plug my foster dog at the end of this. But finding a collective purpose through whether that is a volunteering with, like animal rescue, like I do. I'm a huge fan of the YMCA. We have a really lot of great programs there. If it's something like Clint does, where he volunteers through his church, or Ben, with his advocacy work for Autism Speaks, something where you can take your sense of self and your self-identity and move it away from your job and into somewhere where you can let your skills, your inner self shine, and it's not tied up directly to your pay and your job. It really helps lift a load off of you, and it's going to make that seem so much less daunting because now it's not becoming this whole new person. It's just, I just need a job. It's just, I need to manage this brand's LinkedIn instead of that one, or run this project instead of that one.
I'll tag on to that just real quickly before we move on. And I'm sure we'll speak to this shortly as well. Being able to find ways of escape, I think, is very important. Obviously, when you're on the job search, you have a job to get a job. But being able to understand to find things that are cost effective that you enjoy, whether if you like to hike, get out and go hike, give yourself permission to do that. If it's a holiday, and I know a lot of people have holiday feel, especially around the core holidays that we celebrate here in the Western world, Christmas and so on and so forth. If they're unemployed, they feel guilty that they can't enjoy like getting themselves a gift or whatnot. Give yourself that grace and freedom to do those things if you've got the budget and the bandwidth to do so, right? Celebrate and enjoy you're still living, you're still above ground and above terra firma, and take time to experience those aspects of life just as a whole. So,
and it can really just be like little things, little wins that you celebrate each day, through whether that's like a mindful practice that you're doing, or even something as simple as like, I'm really big on having a cup of herbal tea in the morning before my coffee, to try and get myself centered and grounded. And like picking out a new flavor of tea at the store, I'm like, that's such a little treat. It's just a little something where I take a moment to be mindful and grounded. And I think that's really, really the key. And again, not coming to you as your therapist, just someone who's paid enough of them, that finding those moments where you can be grounded. Yeah, exactly. Coffee after tea, where you can be grounded and be present, is going to remove you and make all of these other items seem so much less daunting. Because as soon as you start clicking around on LinkedIn, you're going to get very overstimulated and overwhelmed very quickly. So being able to remove yourself after. But let's see. So I know, Clint, you talked about when we were prepping using little projects to spark momentum. Could you tell me a little bit more what you wanted to talk about on that one?
Yeah, something I've been diving into with folks here locally in Austin with some of the job seeker networks that I'm part of is that I'm seeing where a lot of folks that have been in leadership roles, like functional leadership, especially here in the tech space, program managers, directors, project managers, that particular category of jobs this past couple of years has really gotten turned on its head. And it's one of these things where I've seen some of the most amazing leaders that are in tech are really stalled out. They're not getting interviews, or they're not getting jobs, but they're amazingly qualified for things. So one of the things I've been doing is trying to help folks, and even myself right now, like reinvent a little bit of like, what can I study and take on as like a proof of concept project for myself to up my skill set. And now there's all kinds of like learning things you could do, like there's LinkedIn Learning or different things, but like taking like one small objective of like a passion project, but applying tech to it to help you get there. Different things like that actually seem to be like, okay, if my brain's not atrophying because I'm just sitting here wallowing in the loss and like wallowing in the frustration and the stress, and I don't have something I know I'm progressing, it's tough. Like your confidence levels keep sinking. But if you can pick some like mini projects, like, hey, like this week, I want to learn how to like, create maybe an AI agent, or I want to learn how to use Canva better, or, I've heard of this, but I never used it before. So those things that maybe it's been on your peripheral, it's kind of important, you should probably catch up with it, like go do it, because there's no pressure of a boss telling you did it wrong or you didn't do it right, or team members do, like, you're doing it for you. And that seems to be where, if I can say this the right way, it's maybe changing your momentum of like mentally of like, hey, I can keep learning, I can keep engaging. And also, one of the most important things whenever people are interviewing right now, and for any time, is a lot of employers want to know about your aptitude and like how you go about learning things. So might as well spend this time, digging in and picking some mini projects for you. And it doesn't have to be work focused. Also, I would say picking some passion projects, things you care about, and leaning into that, because you're more likely to like see it through. Like, hey, I like to build a tool for this group I volunteer with, things that you probably have the knowledge set roughly that other people would have no idea. And just take it, run with it, build something, and have something that you're proud of and you can put some time into while you're trying to figure out the rest of the things. That's like kind of like take on that, and then hopefully that makes sense.
It does. I'll just to piggyback off of that. I think that it builds momentum, it builds confidence, it builds purpose, and it builds joy, and all those things can be can have very positive forward facing impact, if you will, on that side. I love what you just said there. So.
And I'll tag team onto that, even if it's not a work focused project or a learning in that space project. Refinding your creativity is a really great way to kind of get your brain thinking and going. Even if it's not something like journaling, there's been research that if you just take a piece of paper and you like draw circles for the same amount of time you would journal, it's going to do the exact same thing in your brain. One of my favorite like creative workbooks I have, it has a page, and I should have brought it. It just has like these empty squares, and it's like, fill each of these squares. And you're like, I don't know what I want to do. And you're like, it's a square on a piece of paper. I'm going to color it. And like that mental, it's going to set you up so much more for everything else, because it gets you right back into that, well, I can solve this, it's just one mentality. Well, let me pause for a second. I want to check the QA in the chat, make sure we're not missing any questions before we move on to our third topic of reframing the mental health. Let's see. I did have one question from earlier that I wanted to plug in. I think this is a good spot. So Ben, I think this one's probably going to be something you're really good at. How do you work towards building that routine when your days feel empty and like you don't have any structure, so that we can get those applications in?
Sure. I do it through intentionality, right? You're setting a routine. I always tell people this. I think I even said this phrase earlier in the webinar here, but it's a full-time job to get a job sometimes, and that mindset. And I think that one of the things that could be very beneficial for someone that's fresh on their job search, or if you've been on the market for 6 months looking, is to really look at your calendar first and think about how are you going to break this thing up in a way that's going to be both beneficial towards your job search and also help you maintain the energy through the day, right? For lack of a better phrase. I tell people when they're out there actively looking to treat every Monday through Friday as if it's their work day. meaning at 7:30 you're getting up and you're having your coffee. From 8 until 9, you are doing research on LinkedIn or whatever website out there that you're looking at for roles. You're looking to see what's out there. From 9 to 11, you're setting aside time for things like intentional networking efforts, or learning a new professional skill, or working toward a certification that could help you in your next move. Your day up in these blocks, right? Certainly set aside time during the day to give yourself breaks, because it is important that, again, that you maintain that mental and spiritual and physical energy as you go along with it. But I'm a big believer that establishing a routine when there is potential for no routine to be held. You could be sitting there and lost in your doom scrolling on this device right here, or in the television or whatnot. Having an established routine during those times is going to be helpful for you. So.
And you can even force it. I am the biggest believer of screen time limits on my phone. Now, I don't always follow them. I usually hit the give me 15 more minutes, but I have apps blocked off. Like, I am not allowed to look at the news after 7 p.m. My brain just can't handle it. So, be honest with yourself about, what you can and can't have access to, and you can adjust your day accordingly.
Sure.
All right. So let's see. This is another Ben topic. Sorry to get you back to back here, but you wanted to talk about looking at your mental health as a form of career resistance. What did you mean by that?
I'm going to try to find a way to word this properly. So I'm a big believer that for mental health is obviously very important. So I think we're all big believers in that. The better you protect the space and between your ears, better you protect your mind and your attitude toward yourself, the better you're going to be in the long run, regardless, right? It's not just career resilience, it's life resilience. We always talk about, and Ciara made the joke earlier about having paid a lot of therapists and so on and so forth. I can also say the same. I've done that myself, but there's other ways of going about that as well. I'm a big believer that self-care is healthcare. So certainly in times where you're in a position where you might be struggling in some areas of your life, the best way, in my opinion, to fix that is to look at ways of potentially fixing you, making sure you're dieting properly, making sure you're setting aside time for exercise, and as Clint mentioned earlier, connecting with people that you love, and so on and so forth. Taking care of yourself will always be part of that process when it comes to building the better you, career-wise and otherwise. Ultimately, on the back end of that, what it's going to do is it does help you have clarity, not just in terms of your approach to work, but also when you're having meaningful professional conversations, going into interviews, going into networking with individuals out there that might be able to help you in your job search, and just having a more healthier self is going to help you through that as well. So use this time in some form or fashion. It reinforces what we've said already, but use this time in some form or fashion to really understand that taking care of you is paramount, and it should be first and foremost, because it will provide a positive result for you down the line in all ways and factors. That's really all I mean by that.
I like what you said about the version of yourself, because we all joke, every single one of us here, don't talk to me before my coffee. But it's also, well, have you fed yourself today? Have you slept recently? Like, I can't expect my brain to be nice to me and to do all of these wonderful things that I want it to do if, like, I'm not eating. And sometimes you really have to take a step back and look at the big picture and be like, okay, first breakfast. It might be 2 p.m., but you got to start somewhere sometimes. And, really taking care of yourself that way. And even if, like, I have to make a joke about it, I have to, like, separate and be like, I have to feed my body. But if that's what works for you, that's going to get the best version of you to that interview or that networking event.
If you're doing things that pour anger and anxiety into yourself, you're going to get the compound effects of that on the back end. So just be mindful of that.
And we wanted to talk about burnout as well. Clint, did you want to tackle this one?
Yeah. So I've had some conversations with folks in the past 2 years that are almost unbelievable how many applications they have sent out versus the results they've seen. It's not like hundreds of applications. I have spoken and seen evidence where they have Excel spreadsheets where they are sent out like over 1,000 applications and they're not getting a job. And it's it's really demoralizing, right? It's like, how many times can you get rejected and said no to? And also the auto rejection emails that show up are just, some of them are pretty gnarly. They're so heartless. And then some of them are done well, and you can tell it's actually maybe customized and stuff. Yep. And Scott just put his in there and you said we're at 400. So there's a couple things that pop up and I want to talk about that might help you. Okay, and this is hopefully generational friendly for any generation. There's a piece of this is like playing a video game. A video game you're going to lose, right? And it's like me growing up. I'm a Gen Xer, so I played Nintendo, like Super Nintendo growing up. So you play this game over and over and over. You stay up to 3 a.m, and you keep like losing at a certain spot. And then the game becomes like fried. And this is for like the older people, like the actual cartridge gets so hot or maybe dusty or something, and it starts to glitch out. Yeah. And so you're like, oh my God, okay, maybe this will help. I'm going to turn off the Nintendo, pull out the cartridge, blow in it, tap it, and stick it back in and hit reset. And whenever you did it physically, you're like, now I'm going to kick this game's butt. And it was like, you've been playing for 6 hours. What's going to change all of a sudden? But it did. It was like, oh, I got a fresh start. The head trash that shows up when you're applying online is kind of similar. It's this, it's actually called like a negative bias. It's where your brain says, after a while, if you're getting something that hurts your feelings or physically hurts, like if you touch a stove and it burns you, right? Your body creates this negative bias. It's just like, oh, don't ever do that again. Remember, that hurts really bad. Well, your brain does the same thing when you're dealing with emotional states. And so all of a sudden you start to get rejected over and over and over. Your brain will be like, they'll be like, Clint, stop applying onto jobs. It hurts. And this is a real thing that I've seen people, they're like, Clint, I can't do it anymore. I've sent out hundreds, I've sent out thousands, I'm done. And their brain is actually telling them to stop doing this because it feels like a bad behavior, right? So the head trash there, what your negative bias does to you, you kind of need to take out the game cartridge, shake it, blow it, and then start fresh and pretend it's a new game, because the all residual stuff that's happened so far is really weighing you down. And it's heavy because it's like this trail of like denial that's been chasing you now for, if it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, and you're getting all this no's. It feels like somebody's like throwing dirt on top of you over and over and over again. We got to like knock that dirt off. Take that head trash, crumble it up, throw it in the trash can, restart the game, fresh start today. Okay. Things change every week. There's companies all of a sudden get their budget and new positions open. A friend of yours you used to work with might have just got a new job and they can help you get in the door. But the kind of story we keep telling ourselves is like, well, I just get rejected. So why am I even going to push this anymore? And it keeps falling down. I've been there. It sucks. And I guarantee if Ben or Ciara or anyone on this call, no matter who had a magic wand and they could wave it to get everyone a job right now, they would. But it's not possible, right? And so the things that we could do is like, we got to remind each other, like this rejection that you're going through is not who you are. They don't know you. They don't know how amazing you are. They don't know how bright you are. They're reading, and who even knows if it's a human reading it? It's just to some of the stuff. It's just like they're just looking at metadata that's associated with your LinkedIn profile, and it's saying no, it has nothing to do with you. So one is like kind of separating yourself from the rejection, because they're not rejecting you, they're rejecting some metadata that's associated with your work history. Okay. They're not saying that you're a bad person, you're not smart. It's nothing to do with it. I feel like the ecosystem, the job board ecosystem, this past 2 years has gotten really, really muddy and not great. And that's being nice about it. And it hurts. It hurts. So that's my thing is, let's start the game over. And Super Contra is, I am going to look up how to play that online tonight. Thank you so much for that, Scott Leslie. I'm totally going back to like 8th grade.
I want to speak to what he just mentioned a moment ago too. The rejection feels personal. There are so many ways in society that we can feel and be rejected when it comes to job searching and otherwise. It only takes one, guys. So work toward that one. Put your best foot forward, best steps forward in getting there, so to speak. I'll even tell you this, and Ciara and I, we run this thing monthly, and some of these faces we've gotten to know and build, friendship with over the span of that time. So we're here to encourage anyone that's in here every day on this, and feel free to tap into us for resources and for guides and all of that. But it just takes one. It takes one acceptance, and that 414 number that Scott threw up, 415, if it's not the one, 416 might be, and so on and so forth. But just know that it just takes one. So